welcome to the Playing with Five live stream. We're going to go for about an hour, answer any and all questions you guys might have. Whatever it is, feel free to ask. We're just going to do an hour-ish of value. Let's kick it off. We got first question. Start this off on a serious note. Am I up for smoking some crispy, crunchy, peanut buttery Woody? I don't know what that is, but I think Rhaegar should be down with that. Nice cut, bro. Thank you. I had to go to some ghetto guy in the hood at his house to do it because all the barbershops are closed. It's an interesting experience. While his feral children are running around. Okay, so let's just get started. So I'm 43, but I've been told that I look in my early 30s. Is it worth lying about age if I like women 25 to 35? Or is it not risk being – you're not going to get shadow banned for that. It's kind of really hard to get caught. So that's not concerned. It really comes down to ethics. That's really up to you. Like, I'm 30, so I obviously don't lie about my age. What am I going to do when I'm 43? I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. If you're looking for like mainly hookups, then I don't think it matters. If you're looking for like long-term, serious type of shit, then it might be, a big thing when the girl ultimately finds out. Although one of my really good friends a few years ago when I lived in LA, he was dating a girl for like 4 years before he found out that she was 49. She's been pretending that she was 39 the whole time. She looked super young. They were in Vegas, and he casually saw her ID. It's like, what the fuck? Like 1970? Like, how the fuck are you 39? So, yeah. In the interview with Chris Alvina, you mentioned. Okay, wait. This shit keeps going. In the interview with Chris Alvina, you mentioned that most people in the PO community are broke. Would you say you're financially self-sufficient, well off? If yes, how did you achieve that? Yeah, I would say I'm pretty self-sufficient. How did I achieve that? Just really focusing on business. Like, I think the issue a lot of pickup coaches have is that they think that because they fuck a lot of girls, that's going to get them money. But you have to actually be able to deliver value to people if you want your business to be successful. So my goal has never been to like, I know that me going out fucking like 50 girls is not going to bring me, any business success. So my focus has always been on giving value and just being meticulous with, finances, like not spending money on stupid shit. When I finally start making money, living like somewhat below my means. So yeah, I would say it just comes down to, providing value to people, creating a service that people want. All right, let me fix this thing real quick because this is going to show up and mess up the, actually, I think it's fine. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, 24-hour live stream. I wish, dude. I don't think I can go for 24 hours. Are blondes better? I'm kind of a blonde, and I think I'm pretty fucking awesome, so I don't know. Personally, I actually been always more a fan of olive-skinned brunettes. Because typically you're attracted to the opposite of what you are. So I'm like a white blonde, so typically I'm attracted to like olive skinned, brownish girls. I also know a lot of, Latina girls who are attracted to like blonde guys like me. So typically that's very common. A lot of girls I'm naturally looking for a relationship and are not open to something casual. Do you still try to meet up with girls like this? Maybe I should try to screen more on my profile. Yeah, so definitely screen. I think screening is super important. Let me just fix this camera. There we go. So yeah, definitely, you definitely want to screen. Will I try to meet up with girls like this? It just depends. Like, is she looking for like marriage and is she super prude, or is she like a little bit open-minded? I'm not opposed to dating a girl if like we have a good chemistry and stuff. So it just comes down like, if this is a spectrum where this is just purely one night stand, and this is like marriage. Save yourself for marriage. Like, okay, I'm probably like somewhere right here in the spectrum. Where is she? Is she more or less, close to me, or is she like all the way on the other end? So that's the kind of stuff I look for. Fridge tour when? Dude, there's nothing exciting in my fridge. I do the meal service, and they deliver food in these like things in these boxes. Which, by the way, if you're like tight on time, highly recommend just doing a meal subscription thing. You save a lot of time on cooking and cleaning. So I have one of those. So it's just literally these boxes, and it doesn't look that visually appealing. What are some sketchy, funny story from pickup journey? Dude, I don't even know where to begin. I have so many. Sketchy. One time I got jumped as a direct result of pickup. That was pretty sketchy. I had to go to the hospital because my eye was bleeding out. Funny, I mean, it runs the gamut, really. One time I was I was hooking up with a girl. Oh no, I was fingering a girl, but she was using my fingers to go really hard, like much harder than I would go under normal circumstances. And she basically fingered herself so hard with my hand that she gave herself a period early. That was pretty intense. She had to go home after that because she was in a lot of pain. So yeah, just a lot of stuff like that. What is the best mindset for picking up chicks? I mean, there's a lot, but it's that I deserve this. Like she's not above me. Like we're either on the same level or even I'm as kind of condescending as it sounds, I'm ahead of her. I got this shit. I'm worried. I'm enough myself. I don't need to put on a show or try to impress her. The women love sex, that I'm not like trying to get her to do something that's against her wishes. So a combination of those things, I would say. Okay. This thing just keeps getting fucked. Okay. If you look younger than 43, it's a little. Okay. When you're looking fire, you prefer a wet smoke or a dry smoke? I sometimes make toilet paper. I don't really know what that means, but we'll just move on. Chat alarm. Ooh, I feel flattered. I'm going to hit the show button just so we have that on record. All right, so I'm a high-value man. All I need is game and social intelligence that comes from field experience. Okay, yeah, that was just someone answering the question. How do women react when they find out about PWF? Depends if they find out before sex or after sex. If it's after sex, because the thing that sketches out some women before sex is they're worried that they're going to be on my website. And, like I'm not going to, if I like a girl, I'm not going to write it about her, obviously without her consent. So like but it comes down to when they see the website, they think that like there's like a lack of trust. So it's not that so much that they usually find the writing interesting and fascinating. It's more that it's a lack of trust. But if sex has already happened, then like the trust is already much higher. So then typically they don't care. They really run the gamut. I've had some girls who think it's super cool and can't wait to do videos with me. The last girlfriend I had, she was more on the other end of the spectrum. That's why you guys never saw her. She didn't really want to. She acknowledged that she was fine with it, but she never wanted to do videos with me. She didn't really want to talk about it that much. She didn't really have that many questions, so I didn't really bring it up that much. So it really depends on the girl. But some girls think it's truly awesome. I've had a lot of those. Okay, how do we communicate effectively with women that come from different culture and language barrier? Ideally, learn their language, but obviously that's complex. It's hard. I mean, communication suffers when you guys don't speak the same language. This is why one of the things that annoys me about going after, like really fabulous Latina girls who don't speak English, because like, yeah, I can bang them, but then like we're so limited, how we can communicate. Like a lot of the soul humor stuff and all that shit just doesn't come through. So just the conversation stays very basic. So that's why I've always found easy. It's not that hard for me to hook up with a girl who doesn't speak English, but it's hard for me to continuously see her because 2-3 times in, you want that like communication, you want that like witty banter, and it's hard to do that. So aside from anything to do with body language, you do with Google Translate. When I first started going to Colombia, I spoke no Spanish. So I was like literally doing these Google Translate days where we would just like the whole day would be on Google Translate, and I was still close to those girls. So it's definitely possible. It's just not ideal. Okay, so next. I can't get girls over during lockdown. They all don't want to break down the lockdown rules. Any tips? Yeah, I did a whole video on this. So, I mean, there's a lot I can say here. So check out that video I did. I've also read some later reports on the forums, so you can see exactly how I'm neutered. Basically, you have to find the underlying concern. For example, is the girl worried about the fact that if she breaks lockdown protocol that she's going to get arrested or get into trouble with the law? It's a legal thing. Or is she worried that she's going to get corona? So it's more of like she doesn't trust anything. Or it's her parents. So you have to like get to the really root cause of why she's so worried about the lockdown. Right? She's not just saying, "Oh, it's a law, it's a rule, can't break rules." People love breaking rules. So there's got to be something underneath that. And then I just reframe it. So for example, if it's a legal thing, I'll say, listen, like they're not actually enforcing this. They're not. No one's getting arrested. Like I've been out for like a week now, walking my dog at 2 a.m. and like the cops don't care. Or I'll say I know people who work in, in the legal like it's not enforceable right now. If it's corona, I'll say you're good. I have a very strong immune system and I've been staying isolated. So, or right now, for example, my roommate got tested for corona. He's negative. So I'm really using that card. I'm like, oh no, my roommate got tested for corona, and me and him hang out all the time. So I clearly don't have it. So stuff like that. Also nowadays you can really get a lot of states can get tested, like they have these drive-through tests. So if you do that and you have that, it's like the ultimate trump card. It's like I got tested, don't have corona, you're good. Okay. When a girl first comes home, what's your usual routine? Drinks, watch Netflix. I don't really watch TV at all with girls. I don't watch TV even by myself. Unless it's Game of Thrones, of course. What's my usual routine? I just offer her a drink. Like, I just make her feel comfortable. My dog usually comes out, so I kind of shoot the shit. Like, the first 5-10 minutes, I just let the girl get comfortable. She's in a new environment, so, I want her to feel at ease. And then I kind of just judge based off, if she gets comfortable fast, and I'll start escalating. If she's a little tense, then I'll give her a little more time. I'll offer her a drink, Usually I'll either sit on the couch or take her on my balcony. I like the balcony really a lot for escalating because you can stand behind the girl, kind of like Titanic. I would say a combination of those things works pretty well. I don't really do TV or something like that, but you can. I know people who do. It's just not really my style. All right, next. Can you go live on the beach for day game? It's gonna be so hard. I'm gonna juggle around. My roommate's like a giant lanky computer and a camera. My dog is trying to pull me in one direction. I got the laptop in the other direction. I'm trying to get Wi-Fi. Everything's falling out of place. You've lived in various cities across the state. Which is your favorite so far in life? Ooh, that's a tough question. I'll always have a soft spot for LA. I think LA has a lot of faults, but it's also the city. I would say if I ever had a home, it would be Los Angeles. I spent my early and mid 20s there, and I think there's a lot of advantages to that city. Game is not one of them. So they have great weather, really good, networking, every type of, event and opportunity known to man. I don't think game is that great in LA. But you're probably thinking in terms of pickup, from what I hear, it's actually Pittsburgh. I have several friends who live in Pittsburgh, and they all swear it's one of the best cities for game. Actually, Chris Alvino, he's traveled pretty much across the United States. And he confirmed this. He's like, yeah, dude, for some reason it's fucking Pittsburgh. I think New York City would also be really good for game. Just from everything I've heard. I grew up right outside New York City, so when I was in high school, I would go into the city and pick up girls. And I had even some success there, bar makeouts when my game was dog shit. So I think New York City would also be great. It's just too expensive. I personally would not want to live there just because it's too much of you're living on top of other people. So a lot of it comes down to what you like. Like, for example, I like warm weather. That part is non-negotiable for me. So I can only live in somewhere in the south. But if I was predisposed to cold weather, I'd probably live in Boston or something like that. It's an awesome city for game, for a lot of things. Where I went to college, but I just fucking hate the cold. So there's a lot of cities that are probably, Montreal, for example. It's not in the U.S., I know, but a lot of cities that are great for game, but I just wouldn't want to live with for, outside reasons. Any good catfish stories? Dude, one time this was back when I lived in L.A. This was when Craigslist Personals was still around. So I had this, BDSM ad. This girl responds, and she sends me a picture. And it's this nice fat booty. I'm like, all right, I'm really looking forward to this one. And then this old lady shows up on my doorstep. She's 55 or something like that. And I'm just looking at her. I'm like, is she dropping off her daughter? Or what's going on here? She's like, hey, Alex. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, there's no way I can bang this elderly woman. For God's sake, she probably has osteoporosis. So I give her a very nice hug, and I say, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm just not feeling it. But yeah, so I've had a few like that. It's not common, but it does happen. What is the typical age group of women you meet up with? Do you find certain age groups are more open to casual sex? Typically, it runs the gamut, honestly. Obviously 18 and over, but typically I won't I try to keep it over 21, 22, because I find that girls 18 to 21, while they're good for sex, they're too immature almost. They're just in party mode and shit. They don't give a shit about their life. They eat fast food. So, which was me at that age anyways. So I don't judge them, but typically probably between 22 and 28, 29. But the last girlfriend I had was 35. So I don't know, man, runs the gamut. Obviously I keep it under 40. Yeah, over probably 22. Really depends on the woman, because some people mature a lot faster. Some women can be 40 and look 100 times hotter than a chick who's 18. A lot of it's just genetics and, lifestyle, how you take care of yourself. Okay. What is the most extreme chat moment you ever had? Dude, I really haven't had too many chat moments. I don't even know, to be honest. Yeah, I don't. I really don't consider myself a Chad, to be honest. Like, I think my genetics are decent. I think I work pretty hard by eating healthy and working out all the time, drinking a lot of water. Just keeping healthy. But I don't think I'm like anything that special. What vibrator do you recommend getting, and how do you use while with a girl as a position to give her to use while you're doing a mission and blah blah blah? So Hitachi Magic Wand, I highly recommend. I think I should probably get like an affiliate link because I'm probably directly responsible for selling dozens of those. But so Hitachi Magic Wand positions, I like. There's two that I think are good. One is a missionary, when you put her legs over your shoulders and then you put the Hitachi on her clit. The other one is actually three. The other one is you're laying side by side and then you're fucking her and you put it on her clit. And the third is when she's on top. And that's going to be really hard for you to do, so that one she has to maneuver. In terms of whether you should hold it or she holds it, I don't know, you can alternate. I don't think it really makes a difference. I've never used one before. Yeah, man, best way to find out is trial and error. What is the most epic Fortnite Battle Royale moment? I like this story. One time I had a date. This was back when I lived in LA, and we go to this bar, and it was like one of those like very like locals only bar, like giant like fucking sausage fest. Like it's just like people in the neighborhood, mostly dudes. And I had like a pretty hot Latina date, right? And then fucking Peter Dante was behind the bar for some reason. So he was apparently friends with the owner. If you guys don't know who it is, he's like a C-list actor. He's been in like numerous Adam Sandler movies. He's in Grandma's Boy. And he was really fucking drunk. And he tried like super hard to cock block me and steal my date. So he like came over and he had the pretense because he was behind the bar. So he's like, hey, can I help you guys? And within like 30 seconds of that, he's like trying to get the girl. He's like shitting on me. He's like, I remember one thing he said. He was like, I have 4 houses. What do you have, little man? Stuff like that. He's also really funny, like that guy. He does comedy. He is really funny in real life. So he was balancing his douchiness with humor, which was working pretty well. And I saw that my girl was laughing. And I saw that like in that situation, he had more, he had the fame factor, and he also had the, more of this social status because he was behind the bar. He was like, on the end. And also a lot of people were kind of like around him because he's like the only famous person in that place. So it was a combination of those things. And I saw like kind of myself losing the date. So I was like, oh shit, right? Like I got to take action here. So the second he turned around because someone called his name, I just whispered in her ear, I'm like, I think he's retarded. And then she just starts laughing because he was just like over the top because he was kind of drunk. And he was almost going too hard on trying to egg me. And then she's like, yeah, he's a little weird. I'm like, yeah, let's go. This guy's kind of creeping me out. I just pulled her, like, literally, like, before he had a chance to even turn around. I'm like, fuck this. I don't even remember if I paid for my drinks or not. I like wanted to get the fuck out of there. And then the funny part of that story is I saw him a week later when I was at the bar. And then, I thought we're at the point where we can laugh about the story. So I was like, man, like, that was pretty funny. You tried to steal my date, but, you were close, but it didn't go down. He just, like, looks at me. He's like, dude, who the fuck are you? And, like, walks away. So, I don't know. Not too fond of that, dude. But, yeah, that was a pretty interesting one. Natural podcast. Someone just gave a suggestion. Wow. You ever eaten out of period blood? No way. Shit grosses me out. What's your opinion on red pill, black pill, and blue pill ideology? How much truth does each one hold? I'm only really familiar with red pill. I'm not that. I know blue pill is like whatever, like the traditional mindset of like you got to win the girl over. I don't know that much about black pill, to be honest. I think it's a more extreme version of red pill. I never looked that closely into it, but I can talk about red pill. I think it's pretty toxic. I don't think it's entirely wrong. There's elements of truth to it, but it's just taken out of proportion. Like, for example, are there some really shitty women out there? Yeah, absolutely. But there's also, it's not because they're women, it's because they're just shitty people. There's also some really shitty men out there. Some guys who I would never be friends with in a million years, and some dudes who I trust in my life, So, and just like with women, there's some great women, and there's some women that sucks. It's not like, there's some differences between genders for sure. Like, women are generally more empathetic, women are generally more nurturing, but you can't say that one gender sucks and one gender is awesome. One gender will always fuck you over, and one gender will never fuck you over. So I think a lot of those dudes, they've just been hurt in the past. And I feel like, everyone's been hurt. Everyone's had bad situations with opposite sex. Women have been hurt as well. But unfortunately, they take that one bad experiences and, like, almost like interpret the rest of the, that gender being like that. It's almost like racism, right? Like if you have one bad experience with someone from a certain race, for sure that person could be a giant piece of shit. But then you go and interpret that whole race sucks. It's just kind of like erroneous logic. So I think it's almost kind of like that. And I also don't think it's productive. I think that if you go into everything thinking that the woman is going to fuck you over, that she's a piece of shit, that she can't be trusted, well, first of all, you're not going to bang that many women. And second of all your relationships are going to suck because you're going to project negativity, on your partner. So first of all, I think it's not healthy. And second of all, it's not productive. That's my view about red pill. Blue pill, as far as I understand, is going to the other end of the spectrum. And I think blue pill is more delusional. Like it just assumes that blue pill thinks that nothing the red pill has to say is true. I disagree with that. I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think there are elements of truth that the red pill talks about. I just think they interpret them in the wrong way, or just they go too far and exaggerate, the negatives. Blue pill is just like too much another end of the spectrum, I feel. But I'm not as familiar with the blue pill community. Okay. Sorry, I just got to scroll up because this thing lost. There we go. Have you ever hooked up with any celebrity? No, not anyone you guys would know. Like I've hooked up with like quasi slang girls who are like popular on Instagram or something like that, or chicks who are like second degree famous, like they're not famous, but someone in their immediate friend circle is famous. This is more when I lived in LA, but I never actually hooked up with a legit celebrity. What percentage of time do women not respond to your opener? Probably 50%. Yeah, you can always re-engage and wait like a week and then say, are you always this talkative? So you take that 50% to like 65%. But yeah, like 50%, that's okay. My goal is not to get every single girl. My goal is just to have a great sex life. So, as long as I can have enough leads coming in, that's fine. Have you ever almost died while doing? No, I don't think I've almost died while banging a girl. I don't know how that would happen. I guess if you're old and you have a heart attack. I've come close to dying in the pursuit of getting laid, I think, a few times, but I've never come close to death during sex. What is the biggest age gap you've had? Probably like a 50-year-old MILF. Oh, she was a GILF, actually. She had her daughter had a daughter. So, yeah, like a 50-ish-year-old GILF, but she was like really hot for her age. We hear you. All right, that's good. What smoke? Don't know what that means. How has having an Instagram account helped you get dates? Also, how many followers is ideal not to have on Instagram? It's helped with comfort a little bit. So, like, sometimes a girl might be on the fence. Like, in 2020, I feel like there's a certain percentage of women, and it's a sizable percentage, maybe like 30%, especially if you're going for more like the younger girls, it might be like 50%, who will be sketched out to meet you if you have no social media. So it doesn't have to be Instagram, it can be Snapchat, although I highly, highly recommend Instagram over Snapchat. There's a certain percentage of women who will not meet you or be very sketched out to meet you because they think that you might be a serial killer because you don't have social media. How exactly they make that mental leap from not having social media to being a serial killer, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I definitely do recommend having an Instagram account. How many followers? The more the better, honestly. It really comes down to your content, not so much your followers. So if you put out, like dope pics, fun pics, exciting content and stories, followers will come. And if you buy, like everyone knows nowadays that you can buy followers. So if you have like 5,000 followers, but you have like 5 pics, like it's going to be really obvious. So I would say focus on content a lot more and just trust in the fact that the followers will come. On Hinge, do you ever like a profile without sending a message? Yeah, all the time. I'll only really bother with a message if I think that girl's really hot and I really want her. So, but generally speaking, like for most girls, I'll just hit the like button. If I find them just attractive but nothing special, yeah, I'm just lazy. But the optimal approach is obviously to send a message with your like. I just don't do that all the time. Have you ever been on Skip the Games? No, I'm not familiar with that is. What is your go-to dating app and why? At this point, I would say it's probably Bumble. I feel like I get the hottest girls on Bumble and also the girls who are the most serious about meeting up. So right now it's probably Bumble. Yeah, for sure. Like if I had to pick one, if I could only use one dating app right now, if I had to like stick to one, it would definitely be Bumble. But I don't know what that means. What is your mindset for confidence in business and game? For business, it's work hard and provide value. So, for example, if you guys have ever contacted Playing with Fire, like through our email or in a comment, you know that I'm going to respond to you within 24 hours, maybe 48 if it's like an extreme circumstance. So it's like I'm always working and trying to, like, obviously I take some downtime, like in the evenings or something like that. But like generally speaking, I know I need to provide value to keep growing my business. So, and I also need to, stay on top of this shit. Also, another big one is that I try to connect with other successful people and, make mutually advantageous, alliances, let's just call them. So you guys know I've done, multiple, interviews with people. That wasn't by accident. Most of those interviews, I was the one that made them happen because I was like, okay, this person's doing this right. It would be mutually advantageous for me to connect with this person. Who do I know that can introduce me to that person? Because I know that if someone introduces me, the chance of it going down is a lot higher. In terms of game, my mindset is, it's a lot of things. It's, I'm awesome. I deserve the girl. I don't need the girl. Like, it would be awesome if I get her, but I don't really need her. So if it doesn't go down, I don't really care. It's that, we're on the same level where I'm above her, so I don't really need to try to impress her or win her over. A lot of stuff like that. Should women be allowed out after lockdown ends? Yeah, if you want to get laid. Us Chad's got to stick together. Right. This video just got me laid. Okay. I have 2 or 5, and I get Matt Boot Tank. Damn, we're getting a lot of fucking trolls here. I'm watching this with my Vietnamese. Oh my God, Jesus Christ, the trolling. Are all Russians shy? Dude, Russians are just like any other people. There's some very ectomorph Russians, and some very social Russians, some very shy Russians, just like any other race or ethnicity. Okay. When messaging matches, how often does being sexual backfire? Sometimes I try to do my sexualizing in a very smart and progressive way. So it's kind of like, I talked about this with my how to sex video. I'm not going from 0 to 100. I'm going from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. So I'm just constantly testing the waters a little bit, testing the water. So I'm pinging and seeing how she reacts. So that if she doesn't react positively, I don't go too far. So I can still backtrack and, take a step back. So I'm not going from 0 to 100, which I think is a mistake a lot of guys make. Sexualizing, I'm just progressively, slowly, every message, taking a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. Can you break Craig out of you? Nah, he's sleeping right now. What are your tips for a black guy in a smaller city? Honestly, the same tips I would have for any other guy. I don't, it's the U.S., it's 2020. I don't think you have to do anything like super duper different. You have to run like kind of special black guy game. It will help if you're jacked, but also will help if you're any guy. I don't really have like any unique advice, just the stuff I give to everyone else. What bars did you like to meet with girls when you lived in LA? What bars do I like in LA? Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back to those times. So the bar across the street from me when I lived in Santa Monica, it was like on 10th and Santa Monica. I don't remember the name though. Where else did I take my dates? Back when I lived in LA, I wasn't drinking as much. So I would take, I remember now. So my whole thing when I lived in LA, when I lived in Hollywood, was I would tell them to meet me outside the Roosevelt, which is like a fancy hotel lounge. So every girl would be down with that, right? So I'd meet them outside the Roosevelt. And then I would say, hey, let's go. And I would pull them to a fucking coffee bean across the street, get a coffee, because at that time I was drinking a lot of caffeine. And then the girl would be like so mindfucked, like she's like, I thought we were going to a bar. Then I would be like, don't worry. And I would bring them back to the Roosevelt with a coffee in hand. And I would always offer to buy them a tea. And most of the time they would say yes. So they already had something in their hands. So I didn't have to, I got to skip the whole, I'm going to buy you a drink thing. Then I would take them around various areas of the Roosevelt. So it'd be like 4 or 5 different venues because they have like 7 bars inside the hotel. So I'll just take them to each one. But, because I got her ass like a big ass thing of tea. So she wasn't like, she had to finish that. So typically we wouldn't even drink on these dates. And then like after half an hour, I would escalate and something like that. Once I felt, there's a lot of investment, I would just pull them back to my place. And then, it was also pretty easy because the girls, I'll be like, oh yeah, let's grab a drink at my place. She'd be like, okay, yeah, I really want a drink. For some reason, we've been hanging out for like an hour and I still don't have a drink. Like, oh, how did that happen? And then pull it back to my place. So that was my ritual when I lived in what's called Hollywood. Let's swap cities. I'm in LA, but I need to be in Miami. Only if you have a baller pad. I don't want to live in like the hood in LA. That's what I did when I first moved there. I lived in Koreatown in this house with 10 people. It was ghetto as fuck. One night, one of my roommates beat the shit out. Another one of my roommates over laundry. So yeah, not doing that again. What percentage of women on dating apps do you think mainly want something casual versus want a relationship? Hard to say that because it depends on several factors. It depends on where you live. If you think about like the US, especially like cities like LA, a lot more girls are going to want something casual over like a small town in Eastern Europe or something like that, or South America or something like that. So, first of all, heavily depends on what city you're in. It depends on your demographic. If you're like younger, girls can be more skewed towards something casual. If you're like 40s, a lot more girls are going to be looking for a relationship. Yeah, not all of them, of course, but a little bit more. So it also comes down to what kind of girls do you attract. Do you seem like kind of like a nice, stable, normal guy, or are you like a total, jacked fuckboy? So you're going to attract totally different kinds of girls. Have you been to Europe? Yes, I've traveled around Eastern Europe. I've been to Czech Republic. I've been to Hungary. I've been to Finland. I've been to Poland. I've been to Romania. And I think I've been to one more place, but I can't remember where it is. I've been to Austria. In terms of game, Poland is by far my favorite place. Also, Warsaw is a really cool city. Okay, let's see. For the girls that you meet, how often do you talk to them on the phone first? How often do you talk to them on the phone? Like what percentage of my dates do I want to talk to the phone with first? Not that many, like maybe like 10 to 15%. Really, I find it almost, first of all, nowadays in 2020, it's kind of hard to get people on the phone. So that, I know it's going to be a challenge for me to get her on the phone. Sometimes it might be just as easy for me to get a date than to get her on the phone. Sometimes it's even easier to get the date than to get the girl on the phone. Some girls feel really awkward, self-conscious with their voice on the phone. And also I can do a lot of voice memos. They're just easier. So typically I will do voice memos with 30 to 50%, something like 30 to 40% of my dates, and phone call will be like 5 to 10%. Like I find it's really necessary. Pros and cons of dating single mothers. Oh, good question. I'm actually dating a single mother right now. Pros is, well, let's start with cons. Cons is that it's harder. It's harder to make time because, and it's a legit thing. They have this life that they need to take care of. And obviously their kid is always going to come before you. So, they have to do a lot of things around their kids. So their schedule is very regimented, and it's like kind of hard for them to be spontaneous, so as to speak. So you have to be like very patient with scheduling and all that stuff. You have to cut them like, more slack than you would another girl. Pros, I would say that, they're not a virgin. Another big pro is that they're typically a little bit more responsible on average, not all the time, but so I would find the single mothers a little bit more responsive because they have this baby they've been taken care of. So to them, they're a little bit more like on time, a little bit more like aware of like responsibility. But honestly, they run the gamut. There's some single mothers who are really cool and some who, are not. The only tough part is like if you want to do something really long term, like you want to marry this woman, at that point you're probably going to have to like be a father figure for the child or something like that. So it gets a little tricky. It comes down to whether you actually want to do that or not. What are some effective examples how to sexualize the conversation through text? So there's definitely a lot like on the website and on the in the videos. But I'll read one out. So let's go to like a recent conversation of mine. So, okay, I gotta go and open up my Bumble. Okay, so this girl, she messages me on Bumble. She's like, hi. I say, I was waiting for you to message me. She says, you had me in whispering Russian, which is a reference to my bio. I said, you had me with your majestic poses. She just has a lot of pictures where she has like really fancy poses. She's a lot of LMAO, I'm glad you found my pose intriguing. I said, very, how's your Wednesday going? So I'm not going straight into it, I'm building it up. I don't like to go straight into sexualization. Good, went to the work, and my boss dropped out, how was yours? And I sent her a picture of Rhaegar and said, mine was good, just chilling with this guy now. and she sends me a picture of her cat. So she says, "What a cutie, here's mine." And I'm like, "Oh, perfect opportunity." So I say, "That looks like a very nice pussy." Obviously, like, she can't, even if she's super prude, she can't get mad at me for that, because I can just always argue that I was just talking about her cat. She says, "Very warm and cute." And I say, "And gonna be fun to play with." She says, "How do you know?" I say, "Just a feeling." Am I wrong? She's like, "Not even a little bit." And then now we're kind of getting into logistics. So, just like I look for situations and then I slowly amp it up. Generic one I might do, I say, "You seem like my pet." And she'll say, "Why is that?" I say, "Cute and curvy with a little bit of a wild side." And she's like, "Oh, how do you know I have a wild side?" I'll be like, "Just a feeling. Am I wrong?" And then she'll be like, "No, you're not." And then just kind of build on that. Thoughts on DC? Honestly, my cousin used to live in DC, and I've visited that city, but I've never actually spent a substantial amount of time there. I probably would never live in DC because it seems like I find people who are into politics are giant douchebags on average. Like, they're too pretentious and all that shit, really fake. So that whole city, or at least 60% of that city, revolves around politics or all that shit, and that seemed to me is just a giant turnoff. So it's probably not a place I would ever live, at least not long term, unless I become president one day. Someone says they didn't find appealing. Curious what happened to David Swift. He wasn't with PWF, and that's what she appeared. You guys said be with each other or something. So when me and him, so I'm going to be purposely a little bit vague. When me and him, we split up, we signed a non-disclosure agreement. So basically, we decided to not talk shit about each other in essence. He hasn't really been holding up to his end of the agreement at all. So I feel justified in saying this. The issue came down to him being just very lazy. He was super lazy. He was constantly slacking off. He has a good game. I never denied that, but it doesn't matter when he can't keep basic promises and produce content. So it came down to a lot of that, a lot of lying and all that shit. And eventually I just got fed up with it. So even though it was very financially unpleasant, I knew that I had to buy him out and find someone else to work with, which I did in DMP. It was a million times better, who actually can get shit done and doesn't lie to me all the time. So yeah, I would say it came down to those things. There's a lot more I could say on this topic, but yeah, I'm curious about pickup drama. Are threesomes really a myth? Asking for my neighbor. Everyone's just asking for their neighbor. No, they're not a myth. I've had numerous threesomes in my life. They're totally doable. All right, let's see. Okay, so it's so hard. Sorry, this thing just skipped ahead again. Gotta scroll back. You generalize red pill. A lot of red pillers are bitter about female nature, but more experienced members of the red pill, a lot more chill and love women. For sure, yeah. I mean, again, every community is going to have people who are awesome and people who suck. Pickup community has people who are awesome, people who suck. Whatever. Like the paleo community, even the Siberian husky community. There's going to be some awesome husky owners. There's going to be some douchebag husky owners. So yeah, for sure. I'm definitely generalizing, but I have to give a quick summary. I can't evaluate every single person as part of the thousands and thousands of people of the red pill community. All right, so can you elaborate on keeping things man to women? I think a lot of guys keeping that way means sexualized. Okay, that's a good question. So yes, it does not actually necessarily mean sexualizing. There's a correlation, but there's not causation. So you can totally be very man to women without actively sexualizing. I say actively because if you're being very man to women, you're kind of passively sexualizing. It comes down to just okay, this may sound like a creepy example, but think about the way, a father talks to his little kid. He's not trying to, I'm sure there's exceptions to this, but generally speaking, a cool boss ass dad, he's not trying to fucking placate the little kid. He's just speaking very much matter of factly. It's kind of like a variation of that. You're very unfazed, you're very grounded. You're just the girls, think about it this way, the girl's just throwing shit at you and just bounces off, right? When you're not being man to women, then the shit she throws at you fucking gets stuck, right? And just versus when it's man to women, it's just like the Matrix. The bullets are just bouncing off you. There's no effect. You're just very grounded, very confident. You know exactly what you want. You're not talking to her friend to friend where it's oh yeah, that's cool. You're a man. So that's the underlying dynamic. If she's being she's shit testing you, you're not going to try to placate her. I know I keep saying that. You're going to be really? put the shit out. Like, it's just a lot more grounded, it's a lot more chill. And the Red Pill subreddit has a really informative sidebar with a lot of great posts to learn from. I'm sure they do, but my experience with the Red Pill subreddit has just been a lot of really fucking negative people. And whenever I made posts on there, some guys are cool. A lot of dudes are just complaining and saying like, oh, like none of this shit works. Like, come on, dude, this is basics. Or like a lot, like the really detailed posts I'll make, they'll be like, come on, everyone knows this already. Well, there's like 20 people saying like, ooh, I didn't know this. So yeah, I haven't been really that fond of that community at all, to be honest. Always keeping a we frame. Yeah. My current girl told me she's bisexual. Have you ever used your online profile to get threesomes? One bar club? Yeah, I have. So the way I have a whole video on this, how to have threesomes on Tinder. So that's going to break it down in more detail. But the short and dirty is that basically, you create a profile with a girl, right? There's two things you can do. First off, you do like a couple profile. The second is you have her set her Tinder to just women. So both of those things are gonna, get different kinds of girls. So you cast a really wide net, right? And then you basically get the other girl on board with the idea of a threesome. But first, your girl has to be on board. So I recommend doing this when you're actually physically sitting with your girl. You're actually going through the girl. What you don't want is you don't want to find some third wheel, get her on board, and then your main girl starts having second thoughts, or she feels like she's being left out of the process. So it makes a lot more sense to just do this with your main girl. Ideally, like in person, you guys are sitting there, you're looking at profiles, you're both working together, working as a team to make this happen. Have you ever hooked with a friend? Yeah, several. I've hooked up with like some coworkers and stuff. Generally speaking, at least nowadays, I don't have like most of my female friends are girls who have already hooked up with in the past, and now we decide that we're just gonna be friends. So it's mostly girls where we've already gotten that out of the way. We decide we're gonna be friends. It's kind of harder when you're attracted to a girl to be just friends, because there's gonna be that underlying sexual tension that's gonna the friendship is not gonna be genuine. It's almost like there's that underlying dynamic of you wanting something from her. How important is lifestyle, job, hobbies to attract women on dating apps? It's important and it's not important. So if you have a cool lifestyle, you're gonna have you're gonna have better pictures, right? If you have absolutely zero lifestyle, you're not gonna be able to have cool pictures, right? I mean, sure, you can like hardcore fake it, but it's just going to be a lot harder for you to have cool, genuine pics. If you have a really boring lifestyle, like all you do is stay home all day and hide in your basement and jerk off to World of Warcraft, it's going to be harder for you to like have something in common with a girl when you go on a date and have shit to talk about. For example, a big thing for me is I've traveled a lot, so that's like a universal thing, especially in Miami, where it's mostly international crowd. So that's like an instant thing that can connect with, and I know a lot about different cultures. It's like an instant thing I can use to connect with a lot of girls. So yeah, I would say they're important, but they're also, the other end of the spectrum is there's guys who think that just having a really successful job is going to get them girls, and that doesn't work that way either. Have you ever hooked someone who's already answered that? The person's asking this question like 5 times. Okay. How good is Jacksonville for the game? I only ever spent 1 day in Jacksonville, and I was super tired. I went straight to sleep. So honestly, I have no idea. How do you keep a conversation interesting through text? Oh man, that could be like, a half-hour long video. But basically, you keep it relevant to the girl and you keep it like full of value. So for example, to break this down, right? So for me, I really find, YouTube marketing fascinating, right? Like if you know a lot about YouTube marketing, or you know a lot about Siberian Huskies, I can talk to you about these things for like hours, right? Subjects I'm really interested in. A lot of girls don't give a shit about YouTube marketing, right? So that's not going to be a relevant topic to them. So I'm not going to talk about it. For example, if a girl who spent all her life in the U.S. has never even doesn't even have a passport, I'm not really going to talk about travel that much. It's not that relevant to her. Like, at least if she doesn't want to travel. If a girl's not into BDSM, I'm not going to talk about BDSM with her. Again, it's not going to be relevant. And then interesting, so relevance and also full of value. So you don't want to come off. Think about it this way. Same topic, same exact words, but your choice is talking to like Arnold Schwarzenegger or a homeless guy. They could be saying the same thing, but you're gonna be much more interested in Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So it's not that the conversation is so different. It's just like their perceived value. So you also have a high perceived value. But yeah, I have a whole video on this, so check it out. It describes in a lot more detail. What is your mass text? Send a bunch of girls you're not talking to in a while, just see if something will hit. Yo, sexy. I like that one. I'll just mass blast that out. Yo, sexy. Yo, sexy. It has a pretty high response rate too. If the girl has been ignoring me, so there's like 2 unread texts in a row, then I'll do, are you always this talkative? One that I actually had discovered quite recently that I've been having a lot of success with is I genuinely didn't take you for the flaky type. Something like that. Yeah, it goes, I genuinely didn't take you for the flaky type. I've had a lot of success with that also. Even when, are you always this talkative doesn't work, then I hit them with that a few days later and then they respond. There's one actually a week ago. It was literally just ghosting me. Then I hit her with that text and then she started answering me and then I got to the root cause of her objection, solved it, and then we met up and we had an awesome time. Now, she's likely going to be on my rotation. So yeah, that text is pretty dope. How often do I meet with moms? I live in Miami, so there's a lot of really hot, like single Latino women who are like younger than me, but they have like 3 kids. 1 out of 3 of the chicks I meet up with probably has a kid, something like that. 1 out of 3. How attractions of them? The same. This really the only thing with moms is that you have to be. They're much more like organized with their time. So you're not going to have a lot of success with moms with like texts like, you feeling spontaneous tonight. That's not the kind of text you really want to use on a mom. What you want to do is say, what's your schedule like? Because she probably has a very regimented schedule. So you need to figure that out. And she will never drop her kid for you. So if she has to watch that kid, you're not going to talk, unless she's a really shitty mom, you're not going to talk her out of watching her kid in order to meet up with you. So you just kind of have to work around her schedule. That's really the only thing about moms. Best way to start conversation with an old friend, with someone who's been in your friends list for a while. It really depends on the context. Like what exactly is your friendship like? But you can just hit them up with like a funny meme. Like, if they're at least somewhat sexual, hit them up with the elephant choking meme that's on Instagram. So there's a bunch of memes you can just hit them up with, or just whatever, something contextual to your friendship. How do you remember these mindsets where you just write them down and repeat? I mean, I don't need to consciously think about them. They're very much internalized. So I only think about them when I get asked the question, right? That's when I have to consciously think about, okay, what is it that I do? So all this stuff at this point is just very subconscious for me. How did that happen is probably what you're wondering. I have a whole article on this. Again, I know I'm always referencing outside resources just because some of these questions are really complex. I don't want to give you guys an answer that's not fully complete. So I have a whole article on this on the website, so check that out. But a lot of it just came down from a lot of reference experiences. Like when I was 18, 19 years old, I used to think I was a giant piece of shit. Like I used to think I was unattractive to women, that no girl would ever be with me, that, I need alcohol in order to even socialize, and all this stuff, stuff that I definitely don't believe with now. So what changed between that? Well, one of it was a lot of good reference experiences. When you hooked up with hundreds and hundreds of girls, again, not to brag, but, it's kind of hard for you to think that you're a piece of shit. When a girl gives you shit, you're like, well, I don't really need her because I've had, a lot of success in the past, right? If you're like a multimillionaire and, one of your clients cancels, you don't really care that much because you have like 1,000 other clients. If you're, broke and you have like 3 or 4 clients and then one of them cancels on you, it is a big deal. So also having abundance will come a long way. But yeah, there's also a lot of internal stuff, but check out that article for that. How long should I wait before messaging after a match? Message them right away. There's no need to wait. Top 3 PWAs other than yourself. Oh man, I hate answering this question because then I'm gonna miss someone. They're gonna get pissed at me. And also, to be fair, I've only met up with a small minority of the the coaches and pickup communities. So I'm sure there's a lot of guys who are awesome that I don't know about. And there's some guys who I think are probably pretty good, but I've never met them, so I can't say. So this list is going to be very limited to the people who I've made. So if I leave someone out, it doesn't mean because I think you suck. It means that I haven't met you yet, and I don't really know whether you're good or not. But I would say J Wolf, that guy's relentless. Jason James, from what I've seen, and who would be third on that list? That's a tough question. I don't know. Spot number 3, I'll have to save for the next person. But yeah, so those 2 guys are solid. From what I never met Austin, but I watched his infield, and he seems really solid. So yeah, there's a few guys. Like for example, what's his name? The guy that I did a recent podcast with, Aaron Alexander. I think he's probably pretty good. Like, but I've never seen him. I haven't really studied infield of him, so I can't say for sure. But from the communication we had, he has all the internals of a guy who gets pussy a lot, who's grounded, who's confident. So he's not saying anything I disagree with. So there's a lot of dudes like that who I'm pretty sure are solid, but I can't really prove it because I've never met them. Actually, the person who I think has the best game is not even the pickup community. It's my old friend. I'm not going to mention his name because he works in corporate America right now. But I think he has a better game than really anyone I've ever seen in the pickup community. He's the guy who I learned a lot of things from. So to go back to the previous question, another big thing that helps is hanging out with successful people. Like I had this guy was a natural, and he was like, also he read a little bit about pickups. So it was that lethal combination of being a natural and understanding, game. And so, yeah, this guy was just like, he'd open, like he would pull always the first girl that he opened or the second girl. Literally, that guy had some of the best games I've ever seen. And I learned a lot from just being friends with him, hanging out with him, going out with him. So that's another thing that helps. If you have a friend who's crushing it, that's going to go a long way. But I don't have a romantic balcony. Yeah, I didn't have a romantic balcony for a long ass time. Just you can say you have a romantic balcony anyway, and then just have a drink on the couch. What if my place is too far? How do I convince the girl to go back? Honestly, I think you're better off trying to go to your place the vast majority of the time. So even if it's far, like you shouldn't be going out too far away from your place. So if you try to find a bar that's near you. Like if you live an hour outside the city, I don't think it makes that much sense to go out in the city unless you have a good friend who's letting you, pull to his place. It makes more sense to go out to like your local bar. So you want to keep logistics optimally. Having shitty logistics is just creating a whole additional challenge for yourself. It doesn't need to exist. So game is already, there's already all these factors, there can be all these things that can work for you or against you. There's no need to add like another factor that will work against you. So yeah, some girls, like for example, some girls may be really into it, but they can't pull it to their place because they live with their parents and they don't want to get kicked out. Some of them live with really judging roommates. So there's going to be some choices where a girl wants to invite you to her place, but she can't. And then you're going to create an additional obstacle for yourself. You can always hook up in cars in public. I've done that. It can work for sure, but it's always easier if you can just pull them back to your place. Oh yeah, I've been to the Roosevelt right by where I went to college. Nowhere that. Yeah, the Roosevelt is awesome. I fucking miss that place. Not for actually buying drinks because every drink there costs like $40, but for like hanging out, that place was awesome. That's where most of the RSD infield is filmed. Oh, yeah, I forgot Gabriel Gray, so let's definitely add him to the list. Gabriel Gray. How do you recommend setting the meet up during quarantine if the girl hasn't met you yet and is on the fence? So I set it up as a wine date on my romantic balcony, and if she objects to coming straight over, I say that there's no other option. And then if she objects to that, I say, okay, let's go for a walk first. And then if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to come up. So that was my last date. She really said she doesn't feel comfortable coming straight to my place. And after talking to her and getting to know her, she definitely had a valid reason. Like she had a horrible ex-boyfriend experience, like total fucking creep. So, I understand why she didn't want to. She was like skeptical. So my idea was, let's take my dog for a walk and walk around. And then if you don't feel comfortable, we don't come back. And then, if you do that, as long as you're normal and you're somewhat cool, the girl will come back with you. So I went for a walk, nothing crazy, just shot the shit, a little bit flirting, Regular made some, cute sounds. I went back to my place, hung out for a little bit and hooked up. Which decade, era, and what city would you have liked to cold open? Oh, shit, that's a good question. Oh, man. That is a good question. I would love to do it. I would love to have done it in the 60s and 70s. Like, I think that would have been fun. And there would have been, like, no cell phones, so you'd have to, like, just go for this same day pull. Like, you have no option of texting her later. That would have been, like, a really fun challenge. Maybe 60s in Los Angeles, like Venice Beach. With all like the hippie girls, but I probably wouldn't like it because no one used to shave back then, so that'll probably be a big turnoff for me. And girls just generally weren't as hot. Also Medellin around early 2000s before it became touristy. Apparently, like early 2000s, Medellin was just like a jackpot. It's still really awesome, but from what I hear, it's not nearly as good as it was like 15 years ago before the sex tourists started coming in. Yeah, there's a bunch of places, but I would say those two off the top of my head. How long have you been red pilled, Alex? How do you plan on gaming? I'm definitely not red pilled, man. We just did a whole thing on this, so I don't consider myself at all part of the red pill community. Do I plan on getting married? Maybe at some point. Not anytime soon, but I would be much more inclined to just live with a girl and have like a serious monogamous relationship than actually get married. Because if you're living together and you're in love and you're monogamous, I don't really see what being married adds. Like it's just a contract that you're signing. You're basically asking the government to come in and get involved in your relationship. And to me, a relationship should be just between you and a woman. So also, I feel like marriage sometimes creates additional pressure for you guys to stay together when the marriage is not working out because of finances and the headache of getting divorced. And if the relationship is not working out, you should separate. You should try to work it out first. If that doesn't happen, you should separate. So I feel like marriage also prevents that sometimes. And you have situations where like a couple is living together, they're both unhappy, they both hate each other, they're both miserable, but they're staying together because they got married. So I don't know unless it was something like really important to the girl and I really, really trusted her. So if it was a girl who came from like a more conservative family and, it's just like very important for her family, she understood, we're completely on the same page, it was like something important, then I would deal with a prenup. I've never had a relationship and I'm 20. I need to find someone who wants a relationship now. I mean, find girls in the first place. So if you start fucking enough girls, as crass as it sounds, some of them are going to want a relationship. So if you start getting laid, you're definitely going to find girls who want a relationship. That'll be my advice. Just get some abundance in your life. You think Scandinavia is easy for gay. At least Finland, where I've been. Finland is one of the girls are so fucking approachable. The whole time I was in Finland, I didn't have one blowout. This is literally as bad as a blowout can be in Finland. Okay, sorry, I need to go now. It was nice to meet you, American. So fucking girls that are so nice, so approachable. No one ever approaches there. So for them, it's like such a unique experience. I've had numerous girls who are 9s and 10s tell me, no one's ever done this. I've never been approached. The only time this has happened was when I traveled outside of Finland. No one does this in Finland, the girl might my game might be not on point, but the novelty of the approach is so much there. So Finland is very easy. I've never been to Sweden and Norway. I hear Norway's a little bit harder. I know Sweden is pretty easy. But yeah, girls in Scandinavia have a very liberal, open attitude about sex. So that comes a long way. There's no, slut shaming or any of that over there. So that really can help. What do you think of Puerto Rico for apps? I heard you mention once it was meant for you. How would you make it better if you lived there? I spent 2 weeks in Puerto Rico. Okay, just to be clear, I thought it was meant for gay. Other parts of it were cool. I loved the beach. I thought it was a cool city. The culture there was very interesting. It's a little sketchy, unfortunately, but aside from that, I thought it was an awesome city. Old Town is beautiful as fuck. So when I say that, I mean purely in terms of game. How would I make it better? Social circle. Puerto Rico, because it's very Latin culture, and Latin culture is very big on social circle. So I would do just get friends and create a social circle, and then through that you can meet a shitload of girls. And then also obviously all the big dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. They weren't bad. It wasn't the worst place I've ever been. But they weren't as good as because in my mind I'm comparing it to Colombia, and it's not even nearly on the same level. So you know what I mean? So it's it's decent, I mean, I definitely got laid when I was over there, but it's not anything mind-blowing like South America. Alcohol and painkillers. I don't really know what the question is. What has your experience been like dating Asian fob? All right, so in terms of dating, I've hooked up with numerous Asian fobs, but actually having a similar relationship, there's only been one. And it was this Japanese chick I met at H&M. My experience has been that. So with her, again, I don't think every Asian fob is like that, but I think a lot are. She tried extremely hard to make me happy, more than the average American girl would. Also, Latin girls do this as well, but she just took it to a whole new level. I never asked her to do any of this. She lived with me for a week. That whole time, she cooked whatever I want. And she was so casual about it. She'd be like, "Oh, Alex, what do you like to eat?" And I would just give her a list, and then bam, have my meals for a week. She would walk. She didn't have a car. I would have happily given her a ride, but she would, while I was at work during the day, she would walk half an hour to the grocery store, carry all these groceries back, cook them. I'd come home. She'd have a meal prepared for me. I'd start eating, and she'd give me a massage. She was just so accommodating and tried so hard to, just make me happy. But obviously, I almost think she took it too far. But I'm not going to complain. So that part was awesome. This chick literally pampered me no end. The downside was that sex wasn't that great. I would probably have to teach her a little bit better, because in Japanese culture, it's like, or most Asian cultures, the girl just lays there. Like, that's a big turn on for some Asian guys. So I'd have to, change that. Also, the big thing that was hard with her is that her English really sucked. So we had a hard time communicating. Yes, she wound up actually learning some Russian because of me. Like, that's how fucking committed she was. But yeah, it was just hard, like, because of the language barrier. So, if you find an Asian fop who actually speaks English well, I think a lot of things will be better. PWF would be it. PWF for sure. I've always said, oh, this is a comment. What percentage of Miami dates are straight to your place? Where do you take the girls? They don't come straight. I would say 40 to 50%, something like that. 1.5, 2 straight to my place. Lately, it's been more because I don't really sex as much anymore. I found like more solo approaches, but what percentage of my Miami dates are straight to my place? Like probably 1.5, 2, something like that, every other one. And then when I don't, I take them to the bar that's right next to my place, have a drink there, and then pull to my place. Okay. How does your texting change with girls you met through social circle when you still sex girls in your social circle? I haven't met that. Like, honestly, like most of my social circle is other dudes trying to get laid, or like, YouTubers, stuff like that, or it's people who are like happily married. So I honestly don't have like, there's one chick I remember who was really hot blonde. I wrote about her who I met through social circle, which basically another chick who I hooked up with, who I then, friend zoned, and then she was, just really cool, and she hooked me up with her big booty blonde friend. But, I remember with her, like, I played a little bit more cool. Like, I didn't sexualize as much. I just kind of assumed that it was on. And I let my friend do the talking me up. So I wasn't the one that tried to convince her that I was good in bed. I kind of let my friend kind of just drop that in, right? Because it's much more authoritative if it's coming from a friend instead of me. So, and I was just like the cool guy who, like, knew he was the shit, basically. Do you think chirps who reply to your message are attention seeking and not, or not? Well, it depends on the girl. There's some that are attention seeking and not interested in meet up, and some who are very serious about meeting up. So it really heavily depends on the girl. Yeah. All right, guys, we're nearing the hour mark, so let's go for about like 10 minutes. If you have any important questions, get them in, and then we're gonna do another one of these in a few weeks. But yeah, if you have anything right now, just get the questions out there. What are some good cities to vacation for pickup? South America or Eastern Europe. Well, obviously not right now, but yeah, Medellin is awesome. One of my favorite cities. Warsaw. So yeah, there's a bunch of awesome cities for that. Yeah. All right, guys. So yeah, I think we did about. Thanks for joining me. I think we got a lot of good value here. You answered a lot of questions. So if you're going to be rewatching this, we're going to do a what's called a thing in the description where we basically sum up, do like the timestamps to make it easier to rewatch. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be putting out a lot of awesome content, in the near future. We have a video coming out within a few days. It's going to be on how to read between the lines. I think that video is going to be really awesome. I use a lot of text examples. So I'm going to show you exactly how you can read between the lines in conversations and figure out what the girl really wants and what cues she's giving you. All right, awesome, guys. Thank you for joining.